Hello and welcome back. I'm Deborah Shalette Wilson and
I'm Kathy McCommon.
And I'm Ann Riddels.
and together we're the School of Soul. And our new video series is going to be on the process of human development because we do live in a human developmentally illiterate world. And here at the School of Soul, we want to do something to change that so that we can be healthier and more soulful and make better decisions in our lives.
And this information goes way back to Rumi.
Rumi.
When I first learned of this schemata through a Rumi poem, which I'd like Kathy to read.
I am going to read a Rumi poem from The Awakening Storm, which is a book written by Ann Riddell. And Rumi is just one of my favorite poets. And so this Rumi lived back in the 12th century, is that correct? And so in the School of Soul, we're trying to bring back some of these forgotten things. So, I died from minerality and became a vegetable. And from vegetiveness, I died and became an animal. I died from animality and became a man. Then, why fear disappearance through death? Next time I shall die, bringing forth wings and feathers like angels. After that, soaring higher than angels. What you cannot imagine, I shall be that. Rumi.
And I'm just thinking it was actually the 13th century, 1200s, that Rumi wrote. And of course he came first. I just happened to put him in my book. But why this is so important is the outside world mirrors something about ourselves, and all these different stages of development are within every one of us. And the whole thing is, do we embrace everything in the world as representing something inside of ourselves and being able to flow between all the different parts of ourselves as needed? Or because of trauma, are we stuck and rigid in some particular stage? So that's what we're going to be discussing today, the different stages that we can get stuck in and what that looks like. So we can see it in ourselves and our family members and know how to help. And it's important to know too that this has nothing to do with physical age. It has nothing to do with gender. But what it does have to do with is psychological age, which is our emotional age, our mental age. And again, that flexibility to be able to move within all the different parts of ourselves as need arises.
And as we're going to give you kind of an overview introduction today, and then we're going to make a video on each stage and go into it in more detail so that you'll have a better understanding of what we're talking about. So the first stage of development is called rocks and minerals.
And our example is
rocks. And I have a smooth rock, and that means my rock's better than their rock.
And rocks can be very smooth. Psychopaths fit into this category. My dad happened to be one of those, sorry to say. And these people are very, very rigid in their movements, in their emotionality. They don't have true emotions. Their emotions are what is programmed in. And that I was taught growing up, if anyone said, "Hi, Ann, how are you?" I was to say, "Fine, thank you. How are you?" Automatic, programmed in responses rather than coming from genuine feeling. Their thoughts are programmed in, and any sort of spirituality is just if A, then B. Mm-hmm. So when you find yourself with someone who is mechanically oriented, if you say A, they say B. If you do C, they do D. You're talking about this youngest stage of development.
And I'd like to add to that when you're sensitive to yourself and have developed your intuition, it actually, when you meet people like that, you do feel like there's a wall there that you can't get through. No matter what you say, it's just they're not getting it.
When we're looking at the mineral stage, it doesn't only just show up in human beings. It also shows up in organizations because human beings run organizations. So, of course, that's going to be manifested like that. So what came to mind when we were discussing this is there is a group or a philosophy regarding medicine. And in that particular part of the Society of Medicine, there is another group that is vaccines. Now, vaccines are very rigid. If you try to go in and have conversations with these companies or the organizations that promote vaccines, they're not open to a lot of discussion. They're not open to any kind of controversy. They're very rigid. This is the only way. One size fits all. Everybody does it. There is absolutely no exception to the rules.
And you can give them all the information in the world that these can be harmful, and it's like throwing water on a rock. It just falls.
Just
right
rolls right off. So when you look into the world, not only are you going to see this mineral stage in people, but you're going to see it also manifested in our organizations, in our institutions, in our science, because we are a reflection. They do reflect us.
Okay, so the next stage of development is what's called the
Vegetable stage.
vegetable stage. I can't even say. and a good example of that for me is at the side of my house there were these thorny bushes, and they looked really pretty. They're all nice and green, except when you get very close to them, if you happen to get too close, they have little tiny thorns and they get you. And so
you bleed.
Yeah. And so they may look pretty on the outside, but they have thorns. And so these little thorny bushes that have been distributed over my yard, I've been pulling them up, but having to dig out the roots, because their roots are just like almost like tree roots, and I couldn't just pull them up. I had to dig them out. So that to me is an example of the vegetative stage, where it's all pretty on the outside, but the depths of it isn't so great. It's very rigid. And
yeah, the vegetable stage is the split mind, where they have some consciousness, some self-awareness in the realm of appearances, meaning that vegetables can look really nice, be involved in wonderful things, and say the right emotional expressions, but their roots are largely stuck in the mineral stage. That is the unconscious underneath the conscious. So whatever the plant looks like above ground, underneath the roots are growing in the opposite direction. You'll find the exact opposite in the unconscious mind of that person.
Yeah, and these were very rigid roots.
And like the mineral stage, these people have not dealt with their trauma, so they're stuck in post-traumatic stress. They automatically recreate their trauma with others and then avoid anything that reminds them of their trauma, like what they just did.
Yeah, and when people express from their trauma and recreating it, to me, it's like a Venus flytrap. It looks all pretty, but if you're not careful, it'll swallow you up.
And again, the vegetable is the rigidity. They can be so nice and so sweet, but you try to get them to move. And again, movement is like a plant. It'll go with the wind, but it's still largely stuck in the mineral stage. You try to confront them to really move, genuinely move in some direction they don't want to go. And all that rage,
That's
violence,
underneath,
comes to the surface. That's how you know the vegetable. And narcissists, right, fit in this category.
Yes. And who of us have not had some encounter with a narcissist?
I have.
I have too.
Me too.
And they can really wreak chaos on your life.
Yeah, so it's good to have a clear understanding of these stages, not only for yourself, so you know where you might need to be growing, but also to help you in dealing with other people, to recognize where they potentially are at, and kind of what's available to you to be able to do with them, or not, more likely or not. And then we get into what's called the animal stage. You want to define that?
That's what I find most common in American culture is animals, people stuck in the animal stage. They're very physically oriented. They go through life looking at the physical, seeing the physical, relating physically, And if you look for emotions, they express them physically, and thoughts and feelings are just strictly physical in the way they communicate things. If there's a problem, it was caused by something physical, and if there's a solution, it must be physical. So that's your typical animal. You have an example, Kathy?
Well, I'm thinking about our cat Bruce. Now, Bruce is a wonderful cat. We love this cat, and he is just so pleasant to live with. But he lives alone during the day. He doesn't. Nobody's there. Everyone leaves around 6:30 in the morning, and they come back around 6:30 in the evening. Well, when the lockdown came in, all of a sudden he found himself with 3 adults and a 5-year-old in his space all the time. And this very agreeable, happy cat became sulky, became just, he would get upset with people if they touched him or came into his space. So he's an animal. He's physical. He needs sleep, and the 5-year-old kept disturbing him. He's physical. He needs sleep. He needs a peace and quiet, and everyone kept coming by and petting him and asking him how he was doing. He's physical. He's not going to want all that vibration and all that energy around him swirling because he's physical. He's established. He wants to get on the back of the couch and nobody moving. And so I think that would be a good example of an animal personality. They don't want to be moved, and they want everything to be their physical needs taken care of. First and foremost is their physical needs. Does it make me happy? Does it comfort me? Does it serve my needs? Yours, that's not quite in the realm of things there. It's mostly theirs.
And they treat you well if you treat them well.
As long as you treat them well and you go along with their schedule, you've got a happy cat.
But if you don't treat them well, they might start going to the neighbors, right?
They may go to the neighbors, or they may refuse to eat.
And I'm thinking of my cat when I had her trained not to go on the piano when I was there. But I would notice that in the morning after I'd slept that cat hairs all over the piano.
Yeah, I think Bruce does that on the countertop.
So they're able to learn, but within limits. Unlike the next stage of development, the child stage, children are all about learning and exploring the emotional realm. Children love the emotional. They just want to have deep relationships where they discuss feelings. I feel this, and what do you feel?
And don't leave anybody out.
Yes.
Everybody. We got to include everybody.
And so that's a wonderful thing about the child stage. A problem with the child stage is that they can be too sensitive to feelings, that I can't tell her that, that'll hurt her feelings. Even though telling her that might move her in her human development, they tend to hold back because they're so sensitive. It's the child stage when we really start delving into the depth of our psychology, as far as we start realizing that we have hurt a lot of people in our animal living, taking care of our own needs and not really considering others to the same degree. And it's devastating. And also realizing that others have done the same to us. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe my own mother or my own father. It's just so despairing that the child says that that's it. I've got to do something. And the child actually is this stage where we start reaching out into spirituality in more than a performance way or meeting my needs way, like the animal and beneath, below.
Yeah, I remember years ago realizing, because I had so much trauma in my life, but realizing that not only was I hurt, but I had also hurt other people. And that was such an awakening for me at that. And it did cause me to start thinking beyond just me and thinking about my ability to influence people, but not in a very positive way. and so that did lead me to a lot of soul searching.
I think my own journey, all of our journeys, we all have to go through that child stage. Nobody can skip it.
Mm-hmm.
And the child stage is humbling.
Yes.
Because you do realize what you've done to hurt others, not only what they've done to you. You know, before, I think in the animal stage, you're more focused on what has happened to me. How did they hurt me? You know, because it's all about you in the animal stage. But when you get to the child stage, you really begin to start realizing how you've affected the world around you. And it can be humbling and tearful and
Agonizing. And the thing is, this is psychotherapy when we really take people into the depths of themselves. And you know someone in the child stage because they're willing to hold your hand and allow you to guide them, even though it's painful. They're willing because they really want to get past hurting people and hurting themselves. Where the younger stages, it's more of, can you make it go away? Can you make this bad feeling go away? I like you if you make it go away.
Yeah. Where's the magic wand?
Yes.
Well, I have a little granddaughter that I live with, and she's at that age where they would say, you know, oh, I don't want to go through those toddler years, the no stage and things like that. And what I have found with her, because she's a child, and truly in the most beautiful sense of the word, is that when she is being disobedient, if I can reach my hand out to her and make eye contact and soul, heart to heart contact, I can pretty much move her in any direction that is beneficial for her. And she happily goes. But when we're in that child stage, if we are with people who don't realize the vulnerability of that stage, then more harm and can be done. So you always want to make sure that when you're going through that stage that you have kind and loving and non-judgmental and sympathetic and people who are willing to speak the truth to you, but in a way that is like Ann said, you know, because I can hold my hand out to my granddaughter and she can be crying and her eyes dry up and she begins to move toward me. And that's the power of the outstretched hand that's, you know, accompanies that child stage.
Well, and also the School of Soul is about reaching our hands out and creating a safe space for people for wherever they're at and helping them grow the way they want to in a healthier way.
And that leads us to the next stage of development, this stage of woman. And again, this is not anything about gender. There's a woman inside every single human being, no matter what their age or what their gender. And the stage of woman is when we really are focused on the mind and that we are all moving around in a collective mind. And in that, we can see our soul actually communicating through everything that's going on. We hear our soul's voice. We feel our soul's hand guiding us every moment of our lives to what our destiny is, which includes the whole of who we are, every single stage of development, and how to negotiate all these stages. And as the woman is working this out inside herself, embracing and dancing in all that she is, she's helping others. Every single person, no matter where they are in their development, she's helping them to the next stage of development.
Yeah, it's nurturing people instead of too much of our parenting practices are punitive and punishing. And
younger stages of development.
Yeah, discipline means to teach, you know, means to guide. And actually, even the word psychology originally meant about the soul, developing the soul. And we've kind of gotten away from that. But in, you know, the way that we look at things is it's the human growth and development as we develop these aspects of ourselves and embrace all of who we are, that leads us to be able to do soul development, to be able to live from that more soulful place, because these things are now integrated into all of who we are. So we have access to everything that we've experienced.
One of the things when you're in the woman stage, one of the key traits of that stage is nurturing. not only in that stage are you nurturing yourself,
All of yourself.
all of yourself, yes, but you're also extending that nurturing self to humanity and to everyone that you come in contact with, because you know that nurturing is what really helps people move through the stages, and you want everyone to reach the woman stage. And of course we have another one.
And the stage of woman too is so inclusive, where the younger stage development is all about me or my family or my people. The stage of woman is I'm here to serve all.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of Ruth
Bader Ginsburg.
Bader. I don't know why I have trouble with that name. Ginsburg. I mean, I've listened to some of the people that work with her over her life, and have found out a little bit more information about her. Uh, and I really admired that she really, even though she was called a feminist, she really looked at equality for all of humanity. And some of her cases were not only about they were just about equality for a woman. They were also equality for men. They were equality for whomever, for humanity as a whole. And so she saw the bigger picture. I think people tried to pigeonhole her, but I think her soul and the work that she was doing was a much bigger than what I know I've realized since I've just been a more aware of her.
You ever heard the expression, give a dog a bad name and hang it? The younger stages of development tend to slap labels on people because they don't have the ability to see the full range that a person is. So they slap a good label if they want a person to be seen as good, and a bad label if they want a person to be seen as bad.
Sounds like marketing.
Yes. There's so much more. That brings us to the stage of man, which is the ultimate stage of psychological development, where the collective consciousness is the primary focus.
Yeah, and that makes me think of John Lewis, who was in the House of Representatives for Georgia for a number of years. He passed recently, and learning a little bit more about his life, he was again, he was for people, for all of humanity, and for being peaceful and getting, being able to disagree. And of course, the thing that I loved about him was getting into good trouble, because you're doing something, even though it's difficult, but you know that it's going to be helpful for the collective. And so that kind of reminds me of him.
Yeah, the strength in the stage of man is just so unbelievable, in that no matter what, they will do what their soul compels them to do. They are the embodiment of the whole soul.
Yeah, and I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember how many times, but he was beaten and had broken bones. I mean, but he kept going.
So the younger stages would say, "I'm not going to do that. Too uncomfortable."
Yeah.
Or it might make people hurt their feelings. So that kind of thing.
But yeah, he took that stand. But to me, in the things that I've heard from him over the years, and I've listened to him, he had such a calm, clear, peaceful kind of voice and had a lot of clarity.
And did you associate, or would you associate the man stage with Christ consciousness then?
Yeah. We Christians would say Christ in us, the hope of glory. And he is in all of us, whether we welcome him or not, he's still there.
Okay, anything anyone want to add before we finish?
Just that the human journey is one of completion, embracing all that we are. You say it so beautifully, Deborah. You want to say more about that? Well,
it just, from my own experience, I realized that as I express, process, and integrate all of what's happened to me, it's like once I've done that, I'm done. It's like I'm complete on that experience, and that has created a lot of freedom for me. And I think it's because it's the natural way that we're designed, is to complete things, is to grow into wholeness, is to be whole, perfect, and complete as we have been made. And a lot of our experiences and a lot of the beliefs in the world do not lend themselves to nurturing that in us.
But I feel from this perspective of my stage of development, I can look at my past traumas and realize that they were driving me to wholeness, and that I can
Oh, absolutely.
have a healthy respect.
Yeah, if
for
we
all of
can
it.
see the blessing in our trauma, I think that's when you can really see where your emotional development is, when you can see the blessing in the traumas.
Well, I think every experience, there's a lesson to be learned in it. I don't know that I agree that that's why I had the experience, but I'm not
Mhm.
into the why. It's I had this experience. What do I choose to do with it? I have several options, but my choice is to learn and grow and gain wisdom to lead my life in a better way, and then also be able to help anyone and nurture them along their journey as well.
Okay.
Okay, so we will be getting into these stages in more depth as we continue this video series on the human growth and development, so that we can become literate in our own human growth and development and allow our souls to come forward and manifest in our lives individually and then collectively.
In wholeness.
In wholeness.
Full expression.
There we go. Bye-bye.
Bye.